love it, but you will. You will. Where are we over here, Louise?
Just wondering how the hurt self feels about the facade self. Is it annoyed with it or sort of barracking that it'll give up the facade, or doesn't it know that it's there? Or?
No, the hurt self wants the facade. The hurt self demands the facade because remember the goal of the hurt is to avoid its pain and to avoid terror. Right, so yeah, the hurt wants the facade. Yeah. So this is a big problem when you think about it, isn't it? Until the hurt disappears, there's going to be a desire to create facade, and in particular until this particular problem disappears. This terror, the terror-based emotion, the response to fear. Most of you still have it, where any time you get afraid, bang, you're responding. You're responding before you're even thinking. Oh, hang on a sec, I was just afraid, and now what am I doing? Well, you know, you're already doing by that stage. And that's an indication that this part hasn't been dealt with. Once you stop automatically responding to fear, you've dealt with a bit of this terror. Not through an intellectual use of your willpower, but through a feeling of will. You won't have to think about it. You'll just feel, no, I'm not going to do that. And you just feel to not do it.
You mean face your fear? Oh.
No, I mean you feel you will not live in your fear. You will not take an action that validates your fear. Does that make sense? So yeah, the reality is the pain, the hurt self, if you want to call it the hurt self, wants the facade as much as the facade wants the facade.
Oh yeah, I was under the illusion that the hurt self had some truth about it, you know, that it...
The hurt self has very little truth about it, actually. We'll learn that.
Yeah.
When we'll talk a bit more about the state of the hurt at another time. But very little truth in the hurt self. Yeah, most of you... Example, most of you, the hurt self believes that in the world we live in, you're not going to probably get loved. That's your hurt self. Yeah. Completely a lie. Completely a lie from God's perspective. God already loves you and you're just not feeling it. So it's completely a lie. But the hurt self believes it.
Oh, so all the negative beliefs are in the hurt self?
Most of them, yeah. Most
aspect.
of them. Yeah, remember, this is why I've written this down. False beliefs and definitions of love. Like, they're all in the hurt. They're all there. There's a lot of falseness in the hurt. A lot of false beliefs. The hurt is a reflection of how it's been treated, but not how it's been treated by God. It's a reflection of how it's been treated by the world, society, parents. It also is a reflection of what you've done to harm others. You follow? The hurt is. Because a lot of our pain, our personal pain, is actually the sin we created as well. The choices we've made to harm others. Right? And those particular things exist in the hurt based around these false beliefs and false definitions of love. And so false beliefs being the opposite of truth and false definition of love being the opposite of love, evil, right? Not love. And it's the false definitions of truth and the false definitions of love that drive the hurt. The hurt is driven by them. And so one of the things the hurt wants is for the facade to make out that it's all not as painful as what it really is. Right? But we need to bear in mind that from God's perspective, you will be loved. You are loved. From your hurt self's perspective, it's highly unlikely you feel you'll be loved. Does that make sense? So your hurt has a lot of false beliefs.
So that's the part that finds it hard to develop faith.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. It's your hurt self that finds faith very difficult because your hurt self has had proof in its past that faith was pointless. That's how it feels. Of course, it's never had faith in God. It's never had faith in God's goodness. It's never had faith in God's laws because it never learnt any of those things.
So all of us, we're all the same. we haven't had faith in God's laws in our hurt self.
No, even those who are religious have no faith in God's laws. That's the reason why they created religions that surround sacrifice, and why they create religions around, all the punishment of the wicked, and why they create religions around, the reward of those people who do God's will while on earth, not understanding that God's will is that you love, and exercise your free will with love. And so the reality is, all of the religious faiths that so-called have faith in God, the majority of them have faith in a punishing God. They don't have faith in a God of love. They only have faith in a God of love for the good. You follow? They only believe that if you're good, then there's a God of love. If you're not good, then God's going to destroy you, right? So what's that? That's really, isn't that faith in a tyrant? Or what's the word for that? It's a dictator. It's really a sadist dictator, really, right? A megalomaniac faith. That's what they really have faith in, but they don't have faith in a good God. Yeah.
So just one quick thing.
Yep.
So like the New Age inner child aspect, or my inner child at a certain age. So that's not the hurt self then?
It is mostly, Yeah. And the problem with it is the New Age idea of inner child honours the inner child more than wants to feel its pain. It does. The New Age concept is, let's feel some of the inner child's pain, but let's believe it's true.
Yeah, I think that's my illusion of, I thought there was something really good and honest in the hurt self.
Oh, there's some honesty when you feel the pain of it, certainly. And you do need to feel the pain of it in order to release it, certainly. But for the majority of people, they don't release the pain of it, and instead they live in the hurt. And many of us are doing, whenever we're not living in our facade, the rest of the time we're living in our hurt, generally. But it's still not our real self. It's still not the development of our loving self. You follow?
Yeah, thanks very much.
So it's very important to see the distinction, because most of the time there's a lot of New Age and psychological concepts that talk about connecting to the inner child, right? And you do need to connect to the hurt. So I'm not saying you can't do that, but you need to connect to it and release it and get God's definition of the truth of it. And you do that by releasing your truth. And when I say your truth, whatever happened to you, you're honest about it and you cry about it and you release it. But once you've released it, you will no longer live in the definition of it. You will no longer believe what it believed. Right? So at the moment, like for many of you, like I said, many of you believe that, there's no love for you. There's no such thing as a soulmate. There's no such thing as a lot of things, because this has been your experience. And so what you finish up doing is you start going, well, when I connect to my hurt self, I feel all those things that are the truth. No, they're not the truth. They're not God's truth. They're the results of your life and what effect your life has now had on your beliefs. That's all they are. And they're false from God's perspective. And this is why it's so important, if you're truly going to heal psychologically, it's so important to get God's perspective. Because it's impossible to heal psychologically unless you get God's perspective. So the whole psychoanalyst field needs to change in order to have God's perspective about what is the real person and what is the hurt and what is the facade, rather than sort of seeing the hurt as the real feelings that you have and that you're always going to have.
Thanks very much. That's great.
So there's a lot of change there that needs to happen in the medical profession. If we come to Bruce on this side, and